The opening shot of the movie is a close-up shot of an elderly woman in the hospital who is on her deathbed. A violent storm is currently blowing outside the window. The elderly mother, who is obviously in pain, is unable to talk, and her daughter, Julia Ormond, is by her bedside. The nurse comes to the mother's pleas for help and informs her that she may take as much pain medicine as she needs, which is a sign that the mother is at the end of her life. The daughter has come to bid her mother farewell, but their interaction has been tense. The mother begs her daughter to fetch her a journal from her possessions so they can read it together in a weak voice. The diary looks like a journal with tickets and photographs glued to the pages. The daughter begins reading from the diary and it turns out to be the story of Benjamin Button. An elderly woman starts the story by recalling a blind clockmaker who created a timepiece for Grand Central Station in New York. His only son enlists in the army during World War I and is killed in action while he is creating the clock. He carries on with the clock's construction despite his anguish. With President Theodore Roosevelt present, the unveiling of the clock is a significant occasion. As the clock is revealed, it surprises everyone by having the second hand rotate counterclockwise and running backwards in time. The horrified crowd hears the clockmaker say that he hopes time would go backwards so that the war's events could be changed and all the fallen soldiers might be reunited with their families. Shortly thereafter, the clockmaker closes his shop and disappears. Cut to 1918, the year when World War I came to a close. People are celebrating by filling the streets of New Orleans with them. But Benjamin's father, a young guy, is hurrying home to see how his wife is doing after giving birth. His wife is in critical condition and looks to have hemorrhaged during childbirth. This is supported by the priest's presence, who has come to perform her final rites. She begs her husband to make sure that their child has a place in this world before she passes away. Benjamin's mother passes away immediately after his father makes a commitment. The attending nurse attempts to warn him as he approaches the crib, but as he pulls the cover and sees his baby for the first time, he shouts out in fear. He then snatches the baby and runs towards the door. He frantically dashes into the street carrying the crying baby before stopping at the banks of the river. As a police officer stops him and follows him, he is considering dumping the baby into the river. After hastily fleeing, Benjamin's father pauses at the porch of a big home. As soon as he hears noises coming from within the home, he quickly sets his baby on the front steps and abandons whatever money he may have. A young black couple emerges from the residence shortly after. They are making out while the baby is present, fully unconscious. One of them almost trips over the baby as they start to down the stairs. As Queenie, the mother, lifts up Benjamin, we can see that he resembles a newborn who is 80 years old. She chooses to take the baby in against her husband's objections. She carries the baby inside and places him in her dresser's top drawer. As the doctor examines Benjamin, he informs her that the baby has osteoporosis, cataracts that are almost blinding, and arthritis. Nobody anticipates the baby living long. Queenie determines that Benjamin is a child of God because she is unable to have children of her own and takes on the task of raising him. She gives him the name Benjamin and identifies him as her sister's child to the residents of the facility. She runs a retirement home. The aging tenants don't appear to be bothered by Benjamin's peculiar look. Even a senior citizen comments on how much he resembles her ex-husband. Benjamin seems to be an older, small, bald guy with spectacles throughout the course of the following several years, yet he is actually only 5 years old. His mannerisms and inclinations are quite infantile, and he addresses Queenie as mother. Despite his full adult stature, Queenie still bathes him and corrects him harshly when he attempts to leave. He starts to learn to read, but he is confined to a wheelchair since he is unable to walk. After that, Queenie brings him to a Christian healer. He then tells Benjamin to move while performing a spectacular healing after curing Queenie's infertility. The preacher falters and makes his first steps, then falls to the ground and passes away. Benjamin makes physical development by learning to use crutches to walk. Soon after, he becomes friends with an attractive pygmy guy who drives Benjamin into town. They appear to bond over their differences. In order to get home on crutches when the pygmy abandons Benjamin to visit a prostitute, he must miss the final tram. Benjamin recalls his first experience with freedom as one of the happiest days of his life, despite Queenie giving him a stern reprimand when he arrives. The granddaughter of one of the residents is introduced to Benjamin at a reception Queenie organizes for guests at the retirement home. Benjamin is now able to walk without crutches. Daisy is a stunning young woman with red hair and blue eyes. Despite the fact that he seems to be an elderly guy, Benjamin immediately develops a youthful infatuation on her. Benjamin records this day as the day he fell in love with Daisy in his journal. Benjamin experiences a little amount of jealousy when Queenie discloses that she is pregnant at the party. Daisy and Benjamin immediately get close. While Daisy's grandma tells them children's stories, they cuddle up together. Benjamin's youthful behaviors allow Daisy to quickly understand that he is not your typical elderly man. They spend a lot of time together and one night slip away to chat, but Daisy's grandma finds them and accuses Benjamin of having improper reasons. Benjamin is informed by Queenie that he is a man-child and that others would misinterpret him. After 7 lightning strikes, Benjamin's elderly roommate tells him about it when he gets back to his room. The absurd circumstances under which he was hit by lightning are amusingly presented throughout the movie. While he still has an elderly appearance, Benjamin starts to physically mature, can now take care of himself in the bathroom, and appears to be going through puberty. His teeth appear better, and he tones up his muscles. He comments that he feels younger every day when he has his hair trimmed by an elderly woman at Queenie's residence. The woman responds that it must be difficult to become older while seeing the passing of the people you care about. The woman continues, "If we didn't lose the ones we love, we wouldn't realize how precious they are to us," while Benjamin muses about her statement. Later, Benjamin discusses the lessons he learned from several of the older residents who passed away while they were there. Benjamin regularly visits the harbor's docks and one day offers to work for Captain Mike, a seasoned tugboat captain. Benjamin is hired by Captain Mike despite the fact that he seems to be old, and the most of his job is spent cleaning the decks. Benjamin finds all of this to be quite thrilling, and the two rapidly bond. Captain Mike finds that Benjamin is still a virgin during their talk. To address that, Captain Mike chooses to take Benjamin to a brothel. Captain Mike, who is intoxicated, rants about being a self-described artist rather than a tugboat captain at the brothel. He then takes off his clothes to expose his self-inked tattoos, proving that he is a tattoo artist. He continues on about what a beautiful bird the hummingbird in his tattoo is. Despite the prostitute's discomfort at Benjamin's looks, one empathetic one grudgingly accepts to bed him. Benjamin exhausts the prostitute with his young sexual vitality and she agrees to see him every day but Sunday, her day off. We witness Benjamin's father leave the brothel as he is leaving, and he instantly identifies Benjamin as his son. Thomas Button, Benjamin's father, offers to take Benjamin home in his opulent automobile with a driver. For Benjamin's first drink, they make a stop at a pub. Once the pub shuts, they continue to drink and chat before Tom drives Benjamin home. As a result of his first night of binge drinking, Benjamin vomits after Queenie reprimands him for being out late. Benjamin secretly takes Daisy, who is 9 years old, for a trip on Captain Mike's tugboat one day. Captain Mike agrees to take them out to sea unwillingly since he is still inebriated from the previous night's partying. The tugboat's captain gestures to Benjamin and Daisy as it passes a cruise liner. Daisy comments that she would love to go on a cruise ship like that. Benjamin, who is around 17 years old but still has the appearance of an older man, wants to leave home and work on Captain Mike's tugboat. Daisy, who is around 12 years old, asks Benjamin to guarantee she would get letters from him wherever he goes. We see Daisy grow up and train as a ballet dancer as Benjamin rides the tugboat from harbor to harbor. In the hotel he stays at while on the road, Benjamin makes friends with an unhappy Englishwoman named Elizabeth, Tilda Swinton. Almost every night they end up chatting all night, and she tells Benjamin that when she was 19, she tried to swim the English Channel but gave up before she finished. She teaches him about places he's never seen, like Asia, and he exposes Benjamin to the better things in life, like caviar and vodka. They soon have an affair and stay up late every night. In a letter to Daisy, Benjamin confesses his love for her. Elizabeth leaves only a generic letter stating that it was great to have met him when she vanishes one night. The crew is informed by Captain Mike that the U.S. Navy has hired him to bolster the war effort after the Japanese struck Pearl Harbor. Benjamin fills in as cook when the crew's cook decides to depart to be with his wife. As the crew arrives to the wreckage of a military ship transporting soldiers that was just attacked, the tugboat experiences its first taste of combat. The enemy submarine quickly notices the tugboat, and the crew immediately takes heroic action by opting to crash with the submarine and sink it. Guns aboard the small tugboat and submarine trade shots until the tugboat eventually moves into the submarine and sinks it. Many members of the crew, including Captain Mike, are hurt and killed as a consequence. Captain Mike's profits are given to Benjamin's wife after his survival. A hummingbird soars up from the lifesaver as he tosses it into the water from the tugboat, passing Benjamin in its path. He notes that he's never seen a hummingbird on the wide sea again. Benjamin now seems to be around 50 as he returns to Queenie's home after the war. Daisy, who is roughly 20 years old, pays a surprise visit. After a brief reconnection, she doesn't first recognize Benjamin, but they ultimately decide to go on a date. After dinner, Daisy chats non-stop about her love of dance, making it difficult for Benjamin to have a conversation. Daisy makes an attempt to entice Benjamin by doing some outstanding ballet steps and boasting about her promiscuous life in the ballet company as their date comes to a conclusion beside a picturesque lake. Daisy, however, is unhappy when Benjamin declines to share a bed with her. Thomas Button, Benjamin's father, catches up with him once more. Thomas Button's health is deteriorating and he uses a crutch to walk due to an infection in his foot. After showing Benjamin around his Button factory, he extends an invitation to supper. Afterwards, after showing Benjamin images of their family, he tells Benjamin that he is his father. Thomas wants to make amends with Benjamin before he passes away, something Benjamin finds difficult to comprehend at first. Thomas assures Benjamin that he will leave everything. Benjamin brings Thomas to the lake to see the dawn before Thomas passes away, and both men are at peace with the past. Later, Benjamin travels to New York to witness Daisy perform in a carousel play. Daisy is a bit shocked to see him enter the backstage area, but he is captivated by her dancing. She extends an offer to go out with her dancer friends instead of accepting his invitation to supper. Benjamin notices that they are poles apart while Daisy flirts with her new lover in front of a crowd of young people. He returns to Queenie's home feeling let down. Returning in the present, Daisy explains to her daughter that Benjamin had come to inform her that his father had passed away, but she was too young, 23, and obliviously preoccupied with her own concerns to hear him. Daisy goes on to disclose that she was the first American to be asked to dance with the Bolshoi Ballet while displaying photographs of herself as a young ballerina to her kid. You start to realize how much Daisy has kept from her kid. Daisy says that despite having several relationships in her adolescence, she never stopped thinking about and feeling linked to Benjamin. As everything is going on, Hurricane Katrina can be seen raging outside the hospital window according to the news story. Daisy is now performing in Paris with a ballet group. Benjamin describes a series of incidents that lead to a domino effect and Daisy being struck by a taxi. Benjamin learns about Daisy from a friend and travels to Paris to see her. We find that Daisy's right leg was crushed by the automobile, ending her dance career. Daisy asks Benjamin to leave her alone while also expressing her humiliation and rage. The journal says that Benjamin stays in Paris for a while to keep an eye out for Daisy after he departs. Daisy in current times, who had no idea he had stayed in Paris, starts to cry as her daughter reads from Benjamin's diary. Although he was in love with Daisy, Benjamin reveals he slept with several women while in Paris. A few years later, Benjamin looks to be in his mid-40s and is seen riding a motorbike fast while sporting aviator sunglasses, striking a striking resemblance to James Dean. Daisy pays Benjamin a visit at Queenie's when she has healed and is ready to walk once again. He accepts her request to sleep with her right away. While they watch the sunrise at the same lake Benjamin and his father visited, Daisy makes a commitment to never again wallow in her own misery. Together, they They embark on a journey and settle down aboard the yacht that Thomas Button left for his son. When the couple returns from their trip, Queenie's house is abandoned, and they discover that she has recently passed away. In addition to attending the burial, Benjamin also sells his father's home. He and Daisy buy a duplex and spend all their time as a young 40-ish couple in their sparely furnished apartment. They make love all day and watch the Beatles on American TV for the first time. Daisy has established a dancing studio and now teaches young girls after rediscovering her passion of dance. One day when she is dancing in front of the mirror, she is reminded of her limits by her leg injury. Despite this, Benjamin, who is present, is obviously still in love with and in admiration of Daisy. Daisy then announces that she is pregnant after she remarking that they had finally meet halfway in time. Benjamin is 49 and Daisy is 43. Years later, Benjamin worries that the child will resemble him, but Daisy reassures him that she would love the child even more if that is the case. Benjamin watches Elizabeth on TV before they leave the restaurant, being hailed as the oldest person to swim the English Channel. She's 68. Eventually, Daisy gives birth to a daughter who is completely healthy and names her Caroline after Benjamin's mother. According to IMDb.com, Brad Pitt's actual daughter Shiloh, who is 10 months old, plays the infant. Returning to present times, the girl suddenly understands from reading the journal that Benjamin is her true father. Caroline, Daisy's daughter, had grown up believing her stepfather was her biological father when Daisy remarried. Before a nurse informs her that she cannot smoke indoors, Caroline, who is obviously angry, departs and smokes in another room. She returns and continues to read the journal. As he becomes older and older, Benjamin is obviously concerned about his ability to care for his wife and child. Benjamin is skeptic about Daisy's assurances that she can take care of him and the baby, despite Daisy's unwavering optimism. She would be let down by such a life, he warns her, and the child deserves a father, not a playmate. He tells Daisy that he wants to leave before Caroline remembers him and that he wants Caroline to have a genuine father. Daisy worries that as she gets older and he becomes younger, he is no longer attracted to her. After Caroline's first birthday, Benjamin sells his father's button factory, yacht, summer house, and all of his other possessions, leaving all of the proceeds in the bank's safe deposit box for Caroline and Daisy before leaving. The contemporary day Daisy admits to Caroline that she quickly met Caroline's father shortly thereafter and that Benjamin was right, she wasn't strong enough to parent the pair of them alone. She is unaware of Benjamin's activities during that time, but the journal indicates he paid Daisy another visit. Benjamin, who looks around 23 years old today, pays a visit to Daisy's dancing class one evening. Daisy, who is now approximately 60 years old, is surprised to see him there. Daisy has aged naturally, whereas Benjamin is attractive and young. He meets Daisy's husband and his teenage daughter. When Benjamin and Daisy converse, the wife and daughter wait in the parking lot. She reveals that Caroline shares many of Benjamin's qualities and that her spouse is a widower. Daisy departs with her family but stops by Benjamin's room later in the evening. Daisy is obviously embarrassed by his startling youth in contrast to her aging figure, yet she is unable to control her urge to be with him. Yet, it is clear that Benjamin still loves Daisy since the two make out just before Daisy bids them farewell for the last time. Caroline in the present day recalls the visit from the enigmatic stranger and later discovers postcards from Benjamin in the journal sent to Caroline on a number of her birthdays. Every time he sends a postcard, Benjamin expresses remorse for missing important life events like her first day of school and her first breakup. The rest of Benjamin's 20s are then seen as he travels and drifts. He travels across India doing odd jobs and frequently sleeps in abandoned structures. Daisy then calls an unknown number one day and takes a cab to Queenie's residence. Child Protective Services has identified Benjamin, now a minor, living in an abandoned building in New Orleans. Through all the allusions to her in his diaries, they were able to find Daisy. We see Benjamin as a pimply 12-year-old who is wary of human interaction and displaying dementia-like symptoms. While he can't recall Daisy, he feels like he ought to be familiar with her. The contemporary Daisy continues by explaining how she moved into Queenie's home to take care of Benjamin. We picture Benjamin as a challenging 7-year boy with indications of Alzheimer's disease, i.e., he throws a tantrum because he doesn't remember eating breakfast. Daisy reads to him from the same children's book her grandmother once read to her and Benjamin, and she seems to be able to calm him like a kind and understanding grandmother would. In a devastating sequence, Benjamin goes back in time to when he was 4 years old and talks about feeling as though he has lived a whole life but is unable to recall any of it. He ends up on the roof one more time, but Daisy talks him down. Then, as he lies in Grandma Daisy's arms, we witness him decline to a toddler and then an infant. According to Daisy, one day, Benjamin took one final look at her and then died in her arms. Daisy and her daughter are both exhausted by this tale, but they also share the relief and feeling of closure that comes with the exposure of long-kept secrets. Hurricane Katrina is rapidly approaching the hospital in the backdrop, and it eventually draws Caroline's attention away from her mother. When Daisy glances out the window, she observes a hummingbird coming closer before taking off into the storm. The camera pans out to show hospital employees rushing to deliver medical supplies and evacuate patients. Ben himself then speaks about a few of the movie's noteworthy characters in a montage, which concludes with the hurricane's waves flooding into a storeroom where an antique clock is sitting and still ticking backwards.